Yo, what up? It's Doenut, and you tuning in to all your Illuminati news. We are here with the great Matt Ehret. We're going to be talking about some Knights Templar, symbolism, history, World War III, breaking news of horses running around London, just crazy, crazy stuff. I'm so excited to be here with Matt. Matt has been just an amazing source of information. His YouTube channel, his links down below. I highly recommend going to subscribe. This video is pretty much inspired by his most recent presentation, Breaking History, the Untold History of the Crusades. His Substack, absolutely incredible. I've been learning so much, especially with his wife's Substack, Cynthia. They're published authors. And we did a show about 6 months ago. This was the day after the October 7th event, I believe. And I titled it Ritualistic Crusades. So I'm like, man, what? You putting out the Crusades video, and then that, I'm like, I got to reconnect with the wicked smart Matt Ehret. How are you, Canadian Patriot?
Hey man, I'm doing okay, Donut. I'm doing very well, and thank you for that introduction. And you're right, like that was very prescient. The fact that we had this conversation 6 months ago, right as this insane beast was launched, and the fact that you gave it that particular title, Ritualistic Crusade, that really was very insightful. So yeah, I think rounding about and seeing where we are now, half a year later, is a pretty useful thing to do.
Yeah, I mean the Knights Templar is such a fascinating topic. Its connections to Freemasonry, even the ley lines of the White House and history. And when that event took place in the Middle East, it happened right before October 13th, which is the exact day that spelt doom for the Templars. Not all the Templars, most of them escaped, So did they go underground or did they disappear? It's just crazy how that all happened. And even The Economist magazine, which does a lot of this predictive programming, and the logo to it is the Templar logo, this symbolism I always look out for, of the checkerboard floors and the red, black, and white. And right here is some, cultural programming, I guess. Supreme, Double XL magazine. This is their other company, Noah, with the Knights Templar cross. So you could just see all that. But I always thought that this was very eerie. In the year of the dragon, the 2012, A Rough Guide to Hell shows the paragliders. That just creeped me out. Like sometimes I get creeped out looking into the symbolism in the plan. That's a Rothschild Red Shield magazine. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's always a fine line to walk, right? Because we're living in an oligarchy that is highly satanic, highly into the occult. So you'll find that they operate using certain ritualistic techniques, and so symbolism is a very big deal. Now, sometimes at the same time, a red square is a red square is a red square. It's always tough to like walk the line and know that it's not 100%, but knowing that there is this oligarchy with its proclivities and with its fetishes for particular symbols and particular patterns and particular numbers, it does cause the mind to do a double check every now and again, and just be wary that you don't want to go crazy, because sometimes a triangle is a triangle, right? But at the same time, it is pervasive. So it's good that you have a method that you're using to explore this. And yeah, the Templar factor is a really, really big one. And like you have there is that image on the left hand side. That's what sort of made me want to do this with my co-host Gordon for our weekly show. Because that image was something that I'd written a bunch of essays on the connection between the Templars, the earlier cult of Mithra, and the later revival. That's the Kingdom of Jerusalem flag, and the revival of this thing with the Cecil Rhodes Roundtable movement in the early part of the 20th century under Lord Milner and a bunch of other fascists who played a direct role with Lord Balfour in drafting the Balfour Declarations. And here I'm talking about, we got William Rothschild, we got Lord Balfour, we got, oh, there you go. Hey, right there. Eh? Look at that.
Donald Trump's son.
Yeah, that's funny, eh? Right there. Yeah, so you got Balfour, Lord Milner, Lloyd George. Who's that? Who's that guy?
So that's like an evangelicist preacher, I think. He's very famous, Paul Begley. I'm not like hating on him or anything. I'm just pointing out the symbolism.
Yeah, and like I will say that there's levels. Oh wait, first let me finish the thought, right? So the thought was these creatures who were operating in the Rhodes Milner Roundtable movement, reviving, and that's why they called it the Roundtable, in reference to the Grail myths of Percival and the King Arthur and the Round Table and Lancelot, and all of these Grail myths were promoted by major financiers and backers of the Crusades back in the 12th and 13th centuries as part of the sort of propaganda to encourage people to become romantic, stupid idiots, to want to join mercenary Christian armies to go off and take back the Holy Land from the infidel Muslims. And that was like for centuries. That was just a bloodbath of chaos. It was terrible. And so, these same people are setting the stage for the creation of the state of Zionism. Like the Balfour Declarations that are written by these key roundtable figures are, they hate Jews, they despise Jews. Lord Balfour is rabidly anti-Semitic, as is Lloyd George. All four of them are co-authors of the Balfour Accords with Milner. And yet, despite that, they devote so much effort as representatives of the British Empire and a cult of eugenics to create a movement that would convince the world's Jews to go and live in the desert, all in one little convenient little spot right in the center of what's known as the World Island, right? That's Lloyd George. That's the guy who was prime minister during World War I. And he was writing letters. He wanted to become the Nazi prime minister in the 30s again when Hitler was on the ascendancy. So this guy was like, a big like pro-Zionist, but at the same time like pro-fascist, pro-Nazi. So all that to say, there is a direct continuity of what happened 1,000 years ago with the Crusades and these Gnostic secret societies that have a multitude. They're very chameleon-like. They're very adaptable. They like splitting off from each other, as you know, and your audience knows. That's a weird thing happening right now today. Just about like 5 hours ago or 6 hours ago, I was doing my show on Breaking History just a few hours ago, and somebody wrote saying, "Hey, because we were talking about how the rise of Venice and how Venice took over England, and we were sort of doing a part two from the show of the Crusades." And somebody said, "Hey, what's going on with London right now? London, there's like 7 white and black horses. One of them has blood on it, unleashed running down the streets of London, and one of them got hit by a bus." And I don't know what to say except that is a head fuck, if I'm allowed to curse on this show. It's like you pointed out. What do you think of that? What do you
So this is symbolism. When I first look at it, I mean, this is kind of like how God works, is when I'm like curating a show on the Templars and the Crusades. The Templar colors is black, white, red, right? Here's the black, white, red. This is nothing but Knights Templar symbolism. Even if you look at the Knights Templar logo, for example, it's the horse is very important in it. The horse and the 2 guys riding it. I just think it's so weird. Here is the CFR as well. I mean, I believe that's the CFR, Council of Foreign Relations.
Yeah. Yes.
It's so important. So when I see that happening today, I'm just like, wow, on point with the topic for today. Because this is in London. And that's where the Knights Templars set up camp on Fleet Street for the banking system. So the warrior monks who invented banking, right off of Fleet Street, right? You got even plays like The Demon Barber of Fleet Street of Sweeney Todd. Absolutely nuts. And I'm so happy you're here, Matt, because I stretch very far. I'm very Stretch Armstrong, looking into the symbols, falling into the imagination a lot of the times. And about a year ago, I went on a quest to get Wicked Smart, and you've been a huge part of that process, reading your works and then tying it in. And then what I've found out is that the truth is stranger than fiction. So, like, you don't even need to use your imagination. You just read this history, how you got these like Nazi elements connected with the Middle East as well, and Israel, and like you're just like, what? This is crazy. So it gets stranger than fiction. All this. So I'm just so grateful you're here.
Yeah, man. No, it's a pleasure, and no, it is once. But that's the thing, right? So once people can accept the fact that that reality is truly stranger than fiction, you're free to start making discoveries. To the degree that people are too rigid and still want to believe for their own whatever emotional security, their like Orwell called it, protective stupidity, right? That we have to build up, or the oligarchy would necessarily want to build up psychological barriers so that even before people approach the electric fence, before they get there, we want them to have, and I'm saying we from the standpoint of like the oligarchy, we would want them to already have built-in instincts that as they approach the electric fence without even touching it yet, they emotionally shut down with instinctually. And for those who get close to the electric fence and touch it, we want them to be zapped. And so there's a variety of ways of doing that. And I think a lot of people, they just want so badly to think that, okay, I can trust popular narratives. And it's true. Like you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like it's easy to discover that 9/11 was an inside job and Kennedy was killed by the CIA working with the Mossad in a Freemasonic ritualistic murder. You could like discover these things, but then become a completely black-pilled cynic who then goes full hog. We're living in a nightmare and everything has been controlled and all hope humanity has ever had is an illusion to enslave us, and the American Revolution is a fraud, and the Renaissance, everything good is a fraud, right? And that happens to a lot of people too. So you don't want to go that far either, because that's what the oligarchy wants. Because as soon as you do that, you're not going to fight. You're not going to like try to think through solutions, because it's like, what's the point? And you fall in for the trap, right? So, or the hopium level too, right? Where you can go too much into the drug of just hope, where all of a sudden every theory associated with QAnon becomes like something you hold on to as a life raft, while you're thinking all I have to do is eat popcorn, sit back and watch the show while the good white hats from the Great White Lodge of the Theosophical good guys sort of save me from the bad Black Lodge, right? And whatever. And then you're disputing flat Earth, but so it's so important to have that rigor, to just go to original sources and to like fly back into the current situation, to your current world, to think, okay, how does my research into the past impact my understanding of how to put out the fires that's depriving me of having a future. So yeah, this Crusade thing, the Templar thing, is a wonderful like pivot to history. It's like one of these some moments, like history isn't linear in that sense. Like, some moments are more densely packed than other periods. Like I think was it Lenin or some shit who said that sometimes less happens in there's decades when nothing happens. Oh, I can't even remember how that goes.
Lenin, as in John Lennon, or
no, I think it's the actual
okay,
revolutionary guy. But the point is, like, the Crusade period is just so dense with drama, with tragedy as well, because there was something before the Crusades that was destroyed, or at least highly hampered for centuries, regarding an alliance of various people who got really wicked smart, as you
wicked smart.
Wicked smart. Yeah. So a bunch of people wisened up in the centuries before the Crusades, and you had good leaders in England in the 9th century. You had good people in France, in like Charlemagne, who kicked out the Merovingians, who were these like sorcerer kings who took over after the Roman Empire. And the sorcerer kings of the
wow.
Merovingians, they saw themselves, or they created the sacred myth for themselves that they were the heirs to Jesus Christ, who had babies with Mary Magdalene in France, you know, and that's part of the whole like Gnostic secret, like holy blood, holy grail stuff, is this story that the Holy Grail is actually the bloodline of Jesus passed on through the Merovingians into the leading families of the royals of Europe, with the current consensus amongst the oligarchy that they're going with is that it's the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha family that's sort of the biggest sort of density of Jesus blood, that's like there in the inbred King Charles, who's like also the head of the Anglican Church, right? Who's trying to create like this new Magna Carta for the earth called the Terra Carta. And he's also trying to create now with the World Economic Forum this Astro Carta to like extend stewardship under the crown onto the universe. So you got this whole weird thing. And if you go back, this is what Charlemagne's grandfather overthrew, Charles Martel. He overthrew the Merovingians. They never forgave him. His grandson Charlemagne united Europe, created a Carolingian Renaissance, created embassies with the Baghdad, the Abbasid dynasty of Harun al-Rashid. That's Charlemagne. Harun al-Rashid was his buddy, gave him an elephant, and he gave him the Holy Land, said, you know, we don't have to fight with each other. You can have the Holy Land. Here's the deed to the Holy Land, said Harun al-Rashid, the Muslim. And here's an elephant and a bunch of like linens and silk and gold, and we'll guard it for you. And that was the deal that was cut between the Muslims and the Christian worlds at the time, even though you had like these ultramontanist freaks controlling Rome, controlling the Byzantine Empire, who wanted to create basically a forever war of religion. And so, you know, you had a Renaissance period in the Baghdad, what's called the Abbasid Renaissance, where you had Muslims and Jews and Christians and Chinese and Hindus and all coming together to work on astronomy together in Baghdad and Iraq, and all over the place. And in China as well, you had the Silk Road in the Tang Dynasty revived at the same time, and that was conduiting goods and trade and cultural works and poetry and scientific discoveries through the Middle East into Europe and through Russia, or today's Russia, through Khazaria, a Jewish kingdom. And so you had this whole like brilliant period of like a century of relative peace, a huge amount of growth, educating orphans, beautiful cathedrals being built. It was nice. And peace maneuvers left and right, really smart stuff between different faiths. So that had to go. That had to stop. And that had to be destroyed. So kick over the chessboard. And that's what the oligarchy that was still kind of bruising a little bit from the collapse of Rome, you know, they were still reconstituting themselves. In this case, you know, as I go through in my books, there were many of the leading Roman families and the leading cults, like the cult of Mithra, the cult of Cybele, were being reconstituted in the Isle of Capri, which is part of the city-state of Amalfi, as well as in Venice, another city-state in Italy. And they were preparing to set the stage to take back control and reinstate like sort of a second Roman Empire. And sort of Venice, Capri right there, beautiful, beautiful Capri. And it's right off the coast of Amalfi. And Amalfi was sort of the center. That's some of the caves. If you go into, tourists aren't allowed in, but it's known, the Amalfi and Capri especially are known for their subterranean caves, which is why they're also in the Isle of Capri known as a core zone of there's Mithraic temples underground called Mithraeum. It was the center where Tiberius made his sort of palace, where he was doing all sorts of weird occult rituals while he was
Tiberius
Tiberius.
That's
he was an initiate.
The Illuminati like names themselves Tiberius and like all that.
They love
these rituals of Mithra. Like I think that there's a big Mithra ritual happening now, the 7 stages of initiation with that John Cena guy, right? Because he came out naked out of where the rock was. So I'm always looking at symbolism, and I love tying stuff back to these ancient days of Mithra, who were Skull and Bones, right? They're the pirates of the Caribbean, and all this is stemming from there, and things haven't changed. Like, all the symbols show that these cults are still in existence. And I got to retitle this the Forever World War III, Forever War. In this Renaissance period that you're talking about, where you have Jew, Muslim, Christian, all working together in a common piece, right? And then you got these criminal elements that camouflage. Your boy, I don't know his name, but on the Badlands podcast that you guys were doing, which inspired this, he said the skin suits, which I thought was great. I love Michael Tessarian's definition of it, of the camouflage, or Moskowitz as well, who you recently talked to, and I did as well, how he breaks down. It's this ideology, this like left-wing ideology that creeps through the satanic elements into religion, and they hide via religion. So all three of these major religions are used as camouflage, sort of like the left-right paradigm. Whoever you vote for, the operation is going to keep on continuing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's so important to have that nuance, right? Because otherwise you get these stupid debates over my religion's better than your religion, and you know, and my sub branch of this religion, the Sufis are hating the Shia, and you know, the Protestants are hating the Catholics, and the sub Protestants are all each claiming ownership over the right interpretation. And then the same thing in Judaism, and the Orthodox Jews and these Hasidic Jews are arguing against this other Jewish sect, and it's like, it's absurd. And if everybody could just take a step back and realize we're all being messed with by a satanic wannabe overlord class that's trying to portray themselves as immortal gods of Olympus, and that are actually satanic. Like, you know, the people say, oh, Hannah Arendt is so profound because she like talked about the banality of evil. Make the point that even, you know, the baker in Germany, who everybody kind of liked, would just go along with evil when the Nazis were up and rising, and the bureaucrat didn't ask questions and played into it. So it's evil is banal. And it's like, no, evil is not banal. Evil in its true essence, as far as its expression in humanity, is really interesting and fucking crazy. And banality is banal. Like, people on the lower level who go along with evil and are just too like emotionally rigid and shallow to know how to think for themselves, and they'll just like adapt to anything. Yeah, that's banal. That's true. That allows evil to happen, that mediocre character trait that we can go with. But evil itself, when you start exploring like the mindset of like Aleister Crowley or any of these upper echelon sort of members of the creative class, because you're allowed to be a part of the creative class. In the oligarchy, it's not like the oligarchy hates a certain type of creativity. The type that they hate is the type of natural creativity that occurs when you have a mature mind that loves, in a humble fashion, truth and goodness and the dignity of their own like soul's health. And so when you have like a mind that is cultivated the powers of reason and conscience together, then the fruits of that type of cultivation is going to be pretty creative, whether that person is putting their minds into engineering, problem solving in science, in arts, in music, whatever. However, the oligarchy doesn't like that kind of creativity, but they need creativity in order to maintain themselves, right? So the type of creativity that they must allow has to be groomed or vetted. That's why they have things like Oxford, why they need things like the Rhodes Scholarship Program, because they want to find a way to look for talent who have ambition, who will be sometimes from their own class. Sometimes you got to look for talent outside of your inbred class. You just don't have what it takes to solve a major problem. Like, I got to crush a nation that's doing really good things, and they're led by leaders that are smart, that are not falling for my traps. So I need some new fresh talent to think this through, right? I need an H.G. Wells. I need a Thomas Huxley or something from the poor class. So things like the Rhodes Scholarship Program is useful to put out a talent search web.
Yes,
And
yes.
like Crowley as well wasn't from like a super oligarchical family. He was from a family who were occultists in a Gnostic Christian sect called the Plymouth Brethren, under this guy named John Nelson Darby, who was a British cult manager. And so, you know, Crowley exhibited talent. And the thing is with this, their type of creativity is they have to make sure that they can crush your conscience first. Like if they can break you within their Eton, Cambridge, university system, probably a lot of like sexual abuse, a lot of like undignified things that are being expected of those who want to excel or be invited into the inner club, they're going to lose something human. And as they lose it, then they will be allowed to develop their creative powers by reading the sorts of things that most community college young people are not allowed to read unless they fight for it. But it's not going to be there. Like reading actual original writings of scientists, we're not allowed to do. It's expected of the oligarchy to do that, but again, they can't be moral. So all that to say, Crowley, you were showing some images of some of the stuff that does play into his Templar revival thing, and I think it's useful that you did that, because he was also worshiping not only Baphomet, but there you go. That's his Baphomet cross. And for anybody who's noticed the similarity to the Templar, there you go. The Templar managed Kingdom of Jerusalem, which was also co-managed at different times by what became the Knights of Malta through the Knights Hospitaller. There you go. That right there, very similar. Not a coincidence to what Crowley later on revives with his what he calls the Baphomet cross, or the de Molay symbol. He actually calls it the de Molay symbol, named after Jacques de Molay, who was the leader at the time of the Templars in the, whatever it was, 312, I think, or something, or 307 when they got arrested and burned at the stake, the leaders. And so the fact that why were they burned at the stake? Well, you know, we're told, oh, they admitted to worshiping Baphomet, but only under, like, because their headquarters were under the Temple Mount, today's Temple Mount, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, right? That was the underground sort of caverns was also where not only certain figures have wanted to reconstruct the third Solomon's temple as part of their weird, you know, Kabbalistic eschatology that involves like sort of doing this to usher in some purgative burning of the earth in order for, and some people think that the Messiah will come back or come the first time, or the Meshi will come if you're a Muslim. But they admitted to worshiping Baphomet, this androgynous, goat-headed, like satanic god with the pentagram. And people say, oh, but they were doing it under duress. Under duress, they were being tortured. Yeah, maybe not. I don't even know. I at this point, what I can see though is that there's a lot of evidence of occultism before and after them that they seem to be also participating in it. I wouldn't be surprised if that was true, and the consequences were they got shut down and took a big hit because they were in charge of the banking. Like the vast majority of banking, people say, oh, it's the Jews, the Jew bankers are controlling we're controlling the entire world, and it's like, actually, it was the Templars, the Lombard bankers, and the Templars controlled the vast majority of corporations, plantations, feudal estates, banks, and they were an order created to be sort of a paramilitary secret society under the Vatican to facilitate the Crusades as a forever way of doing things. So that was something that, you know, but they weren't alone. They were also co-created with another order. I mentioned what became the Knights of Malta at the time. That was the Knights Hospitaller, and they were created when the first Crusade was unleashed. That's the Knights Hospitaller. That was, you know, they used the symbol of like the symbol that they used for the Hospitaller Knights, which became the Knights of Malta. That's the official symbol for the city of Amalfi, which is what the Isle of Capri is a part of.
I got this Epstein image that a lot of people look at, but
yeah, that's his little Maltese cross on his watch there.
Yeah, right there.
Yep.
And like it's like the Rothschilds are a part of this Malta as well.
Oh, sure.
And you could see the name is the red shield. So right there is that symbol all over the place, and even in like events that go down. This tragic event that happened in Australia.
Mm.
I mean, you could just see the from
Well,
that.
yeah. Well, it's like St. John's ambulance, right? So they have created these institutions that have become so the New South Wales ambulance, St. John's ambulance, like this stuff is everywhere. And some of it has done useful things, like there's tons of doctors and nurses affiliated with this who have no idea, or who are affiliated with the Red Cross and have no idea what the Red Cross is. And, like you wouldn't say like any of these things that everybody's in on it. However, yeah, they're ubiquitous and they penetrate big chunks of society. So yeah, the Malta was co-created with the Templars just a few years later. And both of them acted like rivals, and the Knights of Hospitaller that was also known as the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem. They acquired as a lot of the holdings of the Templars once the Templars were taken down in like 1312. There you go. Yeah.
Well, this was during the lockdowns, and I'm going to be careful with those words, but during the lockdowns, this ship went on the left coast, the west coast of America and the east coast surrounding it. And I'm like, oh man, this is Knights Templar, like overtake of America here. And even that bridge collapse with the dolly, this ship has the 33 on the front. And also, I mean, the symbols, I just look at all these symbols all over the place. But please continue. This is so fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. And and so when you look at the configuration, I mean, one thing is that the Templars were themselves created as an offshoot, as were the Hospitallers of the Benedictines. So the Benedictines had are extraordinarily important.
Okay.
And I want everybody to know, I hate having to do this, but it's like important because we tend to get a little bit like black and white sometimes. But the Benedictines have a lot of good people who have done a lot of good, just as the Franciscans and the Dominicans, all these different orders, because there's a lot of orders in the Catholic Church that have been built up over the years.
Sure.
If you look at most of the origins of a lot of the orders, most of them have political, geopolitical, occult agencies influencing them to varying degrees. Saint Benedict was himself a member of the patrician. He was a member of a high patrician family of Rome. As Rome was collapsing, he had his big revelation inside of a cave after months of just meditating in a cave. And caves play a big role in a lot of this stuff.
Yes, that's where they get the quasi-cultural knowledge, is going into the cave, like in Dead Poets Society. They go in the cave, get that hidden occult knowledge. Yeah.
I forgot about the Dead Poets Society. Really, I got to revisit that.
Great film. Yeah, it's that film. Somebody says rip Jordan Maxwell. That's what really got me into the Templar stuff. Is I interviewed him and he brought up. I was showing him all the symbols in the music industry and the Templars, and like Jay-Z's alcohol bottle, Lil Uzi Vert, prominent players that are all connected to Elon Musk, blockchain technologies, and religious institutions as well, going into the whole crusade stuff. But I watched Dead Poets Society. Taylor Swift just released her Dead Poets Society, which Ethan Hawke's in, who's in the Leave the World Behind. So you got this like Obama connection, Taylor Swift connection, and Taylor Swift is a PSYOP, the swing, the left vote. And just a personal story. I watched that movie and they say seize the day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to seize the day and I'm going to hit up Jordan Maxwell, because I was so scared. Just like me talking to you, I emailed you, but like when we first started this podcast, I am trembling. I'm like nervous because I am so excited to speak with you. So I'm courageous. But yeah.
Well, that's something, man. No, I gotta revisit that. But yeah. I don't want to lose my train of thought. No, it's all good. So the Benedictines, right? So you had here this character, Benedict, who becomes later a saint, who founds a new order. sanctioned by Rome, and his twin sister, Scholastica. She also becomes the founder of an order of sacred virgins, right, called the nuns. And they both set up these new orders together. In the case of Benedict, the Monte Gargano, I believe the name is, which is where the first temple is set up, is right on top of a giant Mithraeum. Now the thing with both of them as well, they were buried in a massive urn over the temple of Apollo, or an urn to Apollo as well. So there's tons of like occult symbolism indicating to my mind that this is among the different variants of pseudo-Christian sects that were rebranded forms of pagan, like the key mystery religions of the Roman pantheon were primarily Isis, Mithra, and Cybele. And all of them kind of worked together. They weren't really competitors, but they were all competitors equally with Christianity and also Judaism. They didn't like either Christianity or Judaism because of the emphasis upon like one creator, one reasonable, loving creator God, with detailed differences. But that type of thing was very incompatible with the sort of like worldview of the sort of pagan mystery cult that they demanded. So if you can't beat them from the outside, Nero tried in the first 150 years of Christianity were like a bloodbath, right? Tiberius tried, and so many. So that wasn't working. Throwing them to the lions, lighting them on fire, that wasn't working. So instead, it's like destroy them from within, right? Create a skin suit, a satanic skin suit. And so this is where the Marcians, the Valentinians, the Manis, the followers of Mani, which are all sort of these syncretizations of Babylonian, Kabbalistic, Hermetic doctrines tied to Mithraic rituals and Cybelian rituals were all sort of like repurposed under a loose veneer of Christian gospels that were kind of made up in the 2nd century. They didn't exist really before that, and they were just covers for basically occultism. And they also had degrees of initiation, just the same way that the Mithra or the Cybelian schools had degrees of initiation, utilizing a lot of psychedelic drugs. That was a big part of the process, to dehumanize, depattern, and then reconstruct those who would be brought into upper management. So yeah, the Benedictines acquired, right after they were created, the Isle of Capri. So one of the key followers of Benedict was another patrician who all of a sudden became a convert, devoted his family fortune, and he happened to own the Isle of Capri. And he's like, we'll give it to the Benedictines. So the Benedictines now own the Isle of Capri with Amalfi. Amalfi then becomes the center of world commerce. Even it's acknowledged in economics textbooks that this is the origin of modern mercantile capitalism was Amalfi. And they were more powerful.
Amalfi is
the
Capri?
city-state. It's
Okay.
that has as its logo the icon of Malta, which, right, is then used to create the Hospitallers, and then they, when they get their home base, their headquarters in the Isle of Malta later on in the 16th century, then its name becomes Order of Malta, or the Sovereign Order of Malta. But that's later. But it's the same thing, right? As far as just rebranding. Yeah, that's Amalfi right there. Yeah, that's the flag. People should recognize that. And so they're running the Isle of Capri with the Benedictines. Two leading Benedictine grand strategists set up. One sets up the Templars. That his name is Bernard de Clairvaux. Very important figure. He's like the Bertrand Russell in my mind of his day. He's a top-down grand strategist. He creates a radical sub-branch of the Benedictines called the Cistercians. He puts two of his followers into the papacy. So he's a player, like a power player. And he hates the Platonic movement. So he's working to, there he is right there. Right? He actually, all of his followers, when they created the cult of Bernard, of Saint Bernard, when they made him a saint, you have to prove that your guy has done at least 3 miracles in his life. So that just means that your retainers, your fans have to just tell a lie and say like, yeah, I saw him touch a cripple, 30 years ago, and the cripple was healed. So that's, miracle number one. And this one of the miracles was, oh yeah, he testified that while he was praying in a church to a statue of the Virgin Mary, she took out her titty and started like squirting milk into his mouth, and he started suckling her mouth, and that was a miracle. And so all of the and that's what you're seeing right there. Actually, it looks like some sort of laser beam going into his face
Yeah.
from her chest, but it's actually, if you look closely, these are all paintings, and there's hundreds more. And it's the only one. People told me, I actually had a Catholic who listened to me make this like who saw my presentation showing this slide, and she was like, "Oh, you're ignorant. All Catholics know that drinking from the breast of the Virgin Mary is representative of the holy morality of the Creator and Jesus." And I'm like, is that true? And I Googled it just to see if there are any other saints portrayed drinking Virgin Mary's breast milk. No, not at all. It's only him. So no, that's not true. So it's a weird, he's got a strange fetish for the ambiguity, I think, of Mary. And one thing you get with the Gnostics, and especially the Templars, who created a lot of churches dedicated to Mary. She's, I think, the patron saint. Or this, yeah, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But anyway,
it's very important, yeah, to the Templars, Mary, Magdalene.
Yeah, are you talking about the Virgin Mother, or are you talking about the whore, or so you got the mother whore complex, the Madonna whore is how it came up later on as sort of a psychological profile that a lot of like Italian men, a lot of French men, a lot of men in general have suffered from this problem of wanting a mistress. I got my wife who's the mother of my children. She's got to be perfect, but then I got to have my mistress on the side who's my whore. And it's like, it's tapping into some weird dysfunction within the male psyche. I don't fully understand, but that's a big part of the ritual traditions of the Gnostics is they enjoy that ambiguity, and they enjoy also the sacred virgins who also have their own witchcraft, tradition that's been baked into a lot of the different branches of nuns. Right. And we get modern, like warrior nun, right, on Netflix. There you got these different like renditions of that in our popular culture, showcasing these secret societies baked into certain nunneries that go back to the Templar order, to defend the Holy Grail and stuff. But they're trying to, again, banalize it and make it seem like fiction, but there is something to it. That is a true thing. Right. That's a crazy, weird show.
I'll check it out. Yeah. I and you were talking about this other show just on top of shows, because I think it's so strange, is that this Knights Templar movie, Weinstein took out like an hour of it. So there's just like a lot of manipulation happening.
Yeah, that's right. And Gort, my co-host, brought that to my attention. I didn't know. It's supposed to be 3 hours long. The theater version is 2 hours. So yeah, apparently the reason, when you look at what was taken out, it's most things referring to the Templars and their efforts to subvert any peaceful discussion towards reconciliation with Saladin, who plays a role in this. I guess this is occurring during the Third Crusade. But yeah, so you've got this whole thing, and it worked pretty well. And Bernard de Clairvaux writes the charter for the Templars. So he drafts the charter in order, because it's hard to make a Christian militant bloodthirsty knighthood, because Christians typically are encouraged to follow the Sermon on the Mount and the teachings of Jesus, which typically it frowns upon murdering others.
Shout out to the Sermon on the Mount. I love the Sermon on the Mount. Yeah,
it's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing. And so how do you logically get around it? He created this Aristotelian syllogistic, like, sort of set of backflips and contortions of logic in his charter to try to make the case that no, if Jesus was saying humans shouldn't kill humans, but good humans are only qualifying as humans if they're Christian. Otherwise, if you're a pagan and you haven't adopted Jesus, then you're kind of not really qualifying as human, and so you're more of a sinner. And thus, if you're going to be that, then killing you is actually a good thing because you're healing sin, and thus a good Crusader Templar who kills a pagan is actually doing Jesus's will. And so he writes this whole set of, again, logical bullshit sophistry, making it the charter of the Templars, mandating them to kill. And I think that could be extended to utilizing usury and other things, and they do it, and they become sort of the bridge, the infrastructure for a lot of this bloodbath, including the northern crusades that are launched into attacking the Russia in the north at the time. Early Russia was also being targeted. There was a variety of other crusades, and they continued on till like the Renaissance. So yeah, there's so many different layers to this thing. And I saw somebody in the chat, in the comment section, write the Spear of Destiny passes through, I think, Edinburgh Castle or something. Is that what it was? It was you ever see that? The Spear of Destiny? And
no,
the configuration of the cathedrals?
The Spear of Destiny. I haven't heard of it.
I wonder if you could, see if you could find it with that search. But basically, there are these one of the I wrote this in part 3. Oh wait, that's okay. No, this is not the same one. That's the literal. So the Spear of Destiny comes from the story, the symbolic story of the spear a Roman soldier used to pierce Jesus's body when he was on the cross, right? So that's the literal popular story. And there's like obviously fetishistic myths built up around it. Like that's what Hitler really wanted, was the Spear of Destiny, and he believed that once he acquired it, he would be able to fulfill a prophecy to become the leader of the world and a new emperor or whatever, because it's like it's got Jesus's blood on it, which has secret powers. So all that to say, there's like myths baked into this a lot. But the one I'm thinking about is specifically a set of a string of cathedrals to Saint Michael.
Oh, okay. Like ley lines, the meridians.
Kind of. Well, this is following the path, the solar path at the summer solstice.
Okay. The solar
starting
path.
from, I think, Accra in Jerusalem, all the way up through Turkey. Or no, sorry, yeah. I don't know. I think Turkey might have one. All the way up through Central Europe into Western Europe. And the last one on the tip of the spear is the southern part of Ireland on Skellig Michael's. It's basically the place where the Jedi, the in the newest bullshit Star Wars movie where you had Luke Skywalker as like in a monastery overseeing these books he never wanted to read. Like, how lazy is that, right? You got the most sacred books in the Jedi entire mythos, and that's your job, is just to sort of like sit there and meditate, and you've only got like 4 books to read that are the most important books in the universe. And then when whatever her name is shows up wanting a little bit of training, she's like, these books look amazing, and what's inside them? And he's like, I never read them. It's like, what? You baby boomer idiot. Like, what is wrong with you? So all that to say, that is actually being filmed at the tip of the what they call the Spear of Destiny, also in Southern Ireland, as one of the shrines, giant shrines. These are all big cathedrals to Saint Michael. And Saint Michael, when you look at that, there's the official, like the real like story of Saint Michael, but then there's the cult of Saint Michael that's different, built up around the same time as Saint Benedict was going through his big revelation in the cave. Around that exact same time is where you had the story, kind of an apocryphal story in like 490 or so, of a dude who's a pagan who's hunting a bull, and the bull, he's got his bow and arrow, and the bull like runs into a cave, and he shoots at the bull, but then an angel intervenes. Michael intervenes from the heavens. So Michael is weird because he's both an angel and a saint. It's kind of strange. And he bounces the arrow back into the dude, like stabbing him, and somehow that causes him to become a Christian. And he goes to the Pope. He's like, becomes a celebrity. Everybody like is like, wow, this guy just like got, it spoke to Michael, who stabbed him with an arrow, and now he's a Christian. And he was like a super popular, I guess, occultist before that. I don't know. And then the papacy is so moved that they create a new order of Saint Michael. And Michael all of a sudden has the symbology of, on the one hand, so you see these paintings, these medieval paintings of the bull running into the cave. Now the bull's gone, and now the new symbol of Michael is always going to be the angel dude with the spear stabbing either a dragon or a serpent or something, or some like demon human with horns, whatever. There's different variations, but it's the same idea. The thing is that's actually a rebranded cult of Mithra, because if you look at Mithra, that was made illegal by I think it was Stilicho, the advisor to I forgot the last one of the last Western Roman emperors. Oh, there you go. That's a quick symbol of it. There's others if you do painting.
Right, but it's that slaying of the bull, the Mithra slaying of the bull.
Yeah, so it's part of the warrior cult. So if you want to create, like in the case of Mithra, the cult of Mithra, which I believe the evidence I have seen has pointed me to the fact that Mithra became the cult of Saint Michael. And there you go. It's always the same motif of Mithra, this solar deity. It's called the Sol Invictus. Mithra is one of the various solar deities. There's other names given to the solar deity, and in some cases it's Apollo. In other cases it's Marduk. In other cases there's a few other names, but they're adapted to the audience that they will be sold to. But the rituals are always going to be kind of the same. So with the Mithraic cult, you got him always, murdering this bull.
And this was a military cult.
It's a military cult, men only. It was kind of like a replay of the old Theban warrior cults of these men who are like a sacred bond that involves also a lot of like gay sex is created. Yeah. They're supposed to like sort of pair off as well and have like special friends in their orders that they then become ruthless killers at the same time, right? So it's this weird.
It's like they love each other because they're getting intimate, and then they go to battle with each other or something like that. 300, like the 300. Weren't they like loving on each other and going to battle?
I don't know. I know in the movie,
I don't know. I heard that somewhere, but
I know in the some version of 300, there's a little jab at the Athenians, who at that time had become a lot more into like, into that by some of the Spartans. But that being said, probably looking at some of the military sort of behavior of the Spartan Tao, maybe probably I wouldn't be surprised. But it was very clear, like most of the Roman legion, the Praetorian Guard members were all initiates of the Mithraic cult. Julian the Apostate, several emperors were also high initiates of this thing, and so it was rebranded, right? And I think that the new warrior class of Christians that they needed to groom, because Christianity tends to really emphasize peace. That's a problem for the oligarchy. They got to break that out of people. So they got to give them a righteous sense of something to go to war for, as your new romantic sort of psych profile. So and it also always coincided, since they did their rituals underground in these Mithraeum. You'll find archaeologists have observed, because they found like 800 of these Mithraeum all over Europe and Russia, and a lot of them in the Middle East and North Africa, but a lot of them in England. You'll find a very high percentage of them also have a Cybele temple that is always located adjacent to it or on top of it, as well as oftentimes you'll find a Catholic or a cathedral, Benedictine often, but not always, built on top of it as well. So just to get across that there was an ambiguity where it didn't disappear. It sort of just rebranded, and it was very important. This for the Templar Malta orders, the symbolism of Saint Michael killing the serpent was a big part of building up the stupid, useful, idiot, romantic Christian warrior ethos that would then want to just blindly go to war and not question like who's actually organizing me to go to war, right? And the thing about the whole like Spear of Destiny idea, when you look at the positioning of these cathedrals all the way to the tip of Southern Ireland, it's and the connection to the Jedi, this is where I think you'll find this interesting, is that the revival of the Mithraic operation through not just, the Milner Rhodes Roundtable movement, but also, if you look at it, its role in overseeing the growth of the Esalen Institute in Big Sur, California. That was a big part of MK Ultra's operations on basically, creating Aldous Huxley's human experiments of basically like guinea pigs that would go on to become psi warriors with superhuman powers by developing psychic telekinetic capabilities, or like, flying on the astral plane. And that actually was a program at the Stanford Research Institute. That's Esalen right there. And my buddy Dave Gosselin, who you got to talk to, he just published the first of a 2-part beautiful series on the Esalen Institute and Mithra called Slaying Mithra, and it's on Canadian Patriot .org. I just published it this morning. Going through that, one of the key programs that was used for in the Stanford Research Institute that was tied to Esalen and this whole MK Ultra operation was called the Jedi Warrior Program, and that was brought into the military in the late 70s and early 80s in order to create and carry out what's known as the Revolution of Military Affairs, and the whole like Mind Wars program of trying to train elite soldiers, like an elite class on there it is, Slaying Mithra, the self potential, human potential, and the Luciferian. I forgot what it is there, but yeah,
man. Yeah, I can't wait to look at this. This is a big part of the research I've been doing, and I love your website. How I found you, Matt, was your website. You did this amazing article on the connections of the Rockefellers, the Clintons, MK Ultra, and the UFO psyop. And I have a couple questions I want to ask you before the top of the hour as well. But everybody, go click the link below. I got Matt Ehret's YouTube channel. You're going to want to subscribe to this channel to get wicked smart. Great research. That's probably the easiest way if you're on YouTube. We got over 2,000 people watching right now. We're streaming on multiple platforms, YouTube, Twitter, everywhere. Rumble today wasn't working, but we're all over the place. Go subscribe to his YouTube, get his books, go to his Substack. The Substack's incredible. But I definitely want to know more, but since we limited time, I got a couple questions I got to ask. You were bringing up Esalen Institute, and I want to talk a little bit about the X. We hear all this X stuff, right? With Twitter X and all this. I wasn't aware that these Aldous Huxley types had their own X club. That's a new information to me that I just learned. I kind of wanted to know about that because you got some articles that are really dope about the Gnostic initiation of Tucker Carlson. I don't want to misquote it, but all about this UFO agenda. And let me try to pull up the X Club. I think that's super important.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I suspect it's connected. Just like the X-Men as well. Like, there's this book that the author Dave Gosselin. Oh yeah, there you go, X Club. Yeah, it's not a joke. They actually
with 9 original members in the X Club right here. So this is Templar symbolism as well, because there was 9 original Templars. Just like there's 9 original Wu-Tang members. You can see the 9 is a big thing.
9 and 12. They like 12 too, right?
Mm-hmm.
12, but yeah, and they're big names like Joseph Dalton Hooker, Henry, obviously T.H. Huxley, Francis Galton, the founder of eugenics, Herbert Spencer, the founder of social Darwinism, William Spottiswoode is huge, John Tyndall, the physicist and astronomer. Like these are big names in science, and the whole idea that behind this grouping was to try to take control and centralize the science, like what is science, and repackage discoveries made by real people who were making discoveries, extract and remove the substance of what made those discoveries possible, which one could only get by reading the works of the great minds who made discoveries, which they then disencouraged, and then they repackaged those discoveries in the form of descriptive formulae associated with a whole bunch of Trojan horse axioms, or basically blind assumptions baked into those formulas, the explanatory models of, like, visual phenomenon or audible phenomenon or whatever. And those axioms, those Trojan horses that they infused into it, were all based upon Darwinian gradualism. This idea that there weren't creative upshifts evident in the universe anywhere, physically, biologically, mentally, human economy or otherwise. Everything is just gradual extension of states that pre-exist based on, like, a random mechanism. In the case of Darwinism, that Huxley was assigned to promote. He was Darwin's handler. He carried out all of the public debates, not Darwin. Darwin never debated publicly because he wasn't able to. He needed his handler, T.H. Huxley, to do that kind of dirty work. And it basically involved this idea that ultimately all changes evident in the fossil records are caused by totally random mutations of something. And sometimes, like rolling the dice, and sometimes a species gets lucky, gets a bigger claw, can thus kill its enemies, have more sex, more food, thus thrive. Its enemies go extinct. And that theory was important to justify the British Empire and the type of evil they had to do by getting bigger political claws to kill more Indians or Irish or whoever they needed to kill to maintain a Malthusian population control. And so that it was always political. It was never scientific. And so his X Club was like the agency to do that. Yeah.
This is getting straight to what's happening now with tracing back the history of Aldous Huxley, Julian Huxley, the aliens coming out of UNESCO, Darwin's bulldog. This is so important to connect the dots. All this X Club.
Yeah, and this dude, Jeffrey Kripal, who's a major handler of the Esalen Institute, he wrote sort of the official biography of Esalen, and it's a useful book. And David, the author of the essay you just showed that I commissioned, he encouraged me to buy it, and I've been reading through it, and he makes a lot of interesting points that Michael Murphy and his creation of Esalen, and the creation by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby of Spider-Man, and especially the X-Men. He puts a lot of emphasis on the X-Men and Francis Xavier as being very important to him, because he sees Esalen as being sort of the Francis Xavier Academy for the elite that would develop and enhance their telekinetic powers and other things by doing group orgies, sacred sex rituals like tantric, sex magic that they would all do together at different occult revival ceremonies and seminars, that they were bringing in Carl Jung's followers to lecture, and Joseph Campbell was lecturing, and the hierarchy of needs guy, Abraham Maslow, was a big speaker at these things, and they were working with the U.S. military, they were working with the CIA, that they were doing the psychedelic trials. Alan Watts was a big part of it. Timothy Leary was a big part of it. Charles Manson was a big part of it. People don't want to admit that, but he was also a big part of Esalen.
Yeah, he was there like right before he did his slangs, I heard. And John C. Lilly, the Illuminati dolphin guy, big part of it. And Xavier was like these names, right? Carry on. Xavier was part of the Illuminabratos, I believe. And
really? I didn't know that.
I believe so. I think so, because in the show Wednesday, the Tim Burton's show, the main guy's named Xavier, and that's how I learned about the Illuminabratos. So I'm pretty sure, which went on to create the Jesuits, and the Illuminabratos was like the original Illuminati, meaning like the same thing.
Interesting. Yeah. So again, you got all of these very, when at least some of the key attributes of this game, you start seeing these things kind of pop up. And so, yeah, is this connected to Elon Musk's X that he created in the late 90s as his sort of first, because that was the thing, right? The first thing he did, they made him his first 20 million selling this tech company. It was called X, and I think he sold it, and the guy who brokered the deal for him that he hired, who did the sell, according to Whitney Webb, was like a close friend of Bill Gates. And so he always made a point that his intention was to create an everything app that would like store all of our biosensory data, and that would be hooked up to brain chips and neural net and other things. And the fact that he's basically gotten so many people who formerly had a healthy mistrust for social, like mainstream social media, to all corral back right into an addiction to Twitter that they formerly had gotten off of, for good reasons. All of a sudden, this guy comes in, has a little popular story to make people all excited that now, like, the richest guy in the world or the second richest guy in the world, all of a sudden really cares about your freedom, and he's a champion for liberty. And by the way, yeah, his occult proclivities with his mom and his ex-wife and all. Don't worry about that. And don't worry about his grandpa running Technocracy Incorporated and the Technocracy. Don't worry about any of those things. Just focus on the fact that you want to feel good. You want to embrace some hope. You need
Right.
So now all of a sudden it's called X again. Which he even said he wants this to represent half of the world's financial transactions. That's his sort of goal, or the goal of the people managing him. I don't think he's a real person in that sense. I think he's a pretty synthetic construct, the way I read it. I mean, I call him Sam. Yeah, you see that too, right?
Yeah, he was written about in Werner von Braun's book, and here's his real staff as well on top of it all.
What? What is that? What do you mean his real staff?
This is a real staff. New York Times will call it a Buddhist amulet, right? Sure, Buddhist amulet, but it's also a real staff as well. If you look up Vril staff, like the VR, like Thule Society stuff. Yeah.
Really? Oh,
that's what it is.
Yeah. See, they're trying to infuse all of this occultism.
Oh my goodness!
Into the conservative revival, huh?
I got one more question. I gotta get this out because I'm gonna be tripping if I don't, and then we could wrap it up. And you don't have to have an answer for it. It's just a lot of your research I keep adding up, and I guess I like to show people symbolism and color coding and how a lot. I mean, there's just so much I wanted to show you. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the Habsburg monarchy just a little bit. So you got this Habsburg monarchy. You got the double cross right there. If we go back to like
the snake, the dragon eating the kid or the person, which family does that represent?
So this is the image of the depiction of the Biscioni swallowing a child, the coat of arms of the House of Visconti on the Archbishop Palace of Piazza Duomo in Milan, Italy, which is also on the Habsburg logo.
Oh, it's on the Habsburg logo, eh? Oh, and they got the Venetian logo there too, with the lion holding and you got the British logo. You got, oh man, you got a lot of logos that they're squeezing in there.
Yeah. And so I kind of wanted to tie it into to Steve Bannon, because I got a lot of friends who like Steve Bannon. And I tell them about, he might be part of the Habsburg monarchy, and there's a couple more symbolisms to tie this all in. So the order of the new Templars right here, speaking of Templars, just the color coding. I believe this is Merovingian symbol. I don't know, the fleur de lis, which could be a bee, which we see that symbol is very important to the Templars, the bee. But the color coding right here of the Falun Gong, which we talked about in our last episode with the connected to the Epoch Times and the far right and all that, the alt-right. And then you got figures that Hillary Clinton likes to talk to, like Fethullah Gulen, who tried to overthrow Turkey, or maybe he failed coup to overthrow Turkey, just showing. And like the symbol, look at the colors right there, the yellow. I mean, it's like the same color coding as well, just showing how certain people use religion to overthrow governments. I guess the question I got is how like, do you got anything? Me having conversations with my friends and bringing all of this up. Is there anything on your mind with that? If not, it's fine. It's just
No, I mean, like I did an essay, which is part of, it's a chapter of my my newest, not my newest, but the latest of the Clash of the Two Americas books, the Anglo-Venetian Roots of the Deep State. So that volume 4 has a chapter in it, and there's an article online that people can find for free called
here.
"Oh, hey, all right, look at that."
That's the one, right?
That's the one. Yeah, it's one of the, I think it's chapter 7 or 8 or something. But it's in there in the near the beginning. And if people Google Steve Bannon and China's deep state with my name, you'll get the article easily online. And I draw out as efficiently as I can. I could have said more, but I tried to say just enough. That demonstrates that not only did the Habsburgs not disappear as far as like a high level black nobility family, as you well know, and as that crest demonstrates on a first degree approximation at least. But still, this family is very, very high level, and there is Bannon. One of the things he does, on top of a variety of things, like supporting like he actually sounds a lot like George Soros, because both Soros and Bannon are both pushing for the overthrow of regime change in China, which is interesting that you have this convergence of the right, the extreme right and the extreme left onto the very same conclusions on things that matter a lot, like
Yeah.
But and he's doing this by like it starts with Miles Guo and the different aspects of what we can know about China's deep state. How have Chinese patriots gone to battle with this foreign agency built up within its ranks over the last 30 or so years, especially since George Soros got kicked out of China back in '89. That's a good starting point to start looking into some of these battles, like who are the traitors. And among them,
George Soros was removed. I learned this from your documentary. Removed out of China, and then China grew.
Yeah.
So that's right there is just kind of crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, they also kicked out, like China is among one of the few countries that prevented Scientology from penetrating and setting up its churches in China. They were trying really hard in the 80s to get in, and because they weren't allowed in, China became a major enemy of the Scientologists. And I think when I look at the growth of, or the creation of Falun Gong under Li Hongzhi, the great master, who can like read minds, teleport, he's reputed to have telekinetic powers and can heal from a distance, can read every of his followers' minds. That's the guy there. He's also talking, he says, he's given interviews where he describes how he's communicating with interdimensional aliens, and he's like an intergalactic messiah figure. Weird stuff, but he seems to me like a Chinese version of L. Ron Hubbard. It looks like the whole Falun Gong operation appears to be a Scientology styled cult created to accommodate the Asian psyche. But when they were kicked out in '97, because they were causing like massive disturbance and destabilizations in Beijing, they were kicked out, and he was given sanctuary in Master Li was given sanctuary in New York State. He lives in this giant 420-acre massive estate in protected by the CIA. So it's clearly, an intelligence operation. And so Bannon is working with this thing, but at the same time, if you look at another thing he's doing, is he's the representative of this order, this organization called the Dignita Humanae Institute. And that institute, they have a website. It's sort of a Jesuit Catholic order that's run out of the Tristuli Monastery in Italy. It's this 800-year-old monastery created around the same time as the Franciscans were created by the Crusader Pope in celebration of Venice's victory over Constantinople, where Venice came out. They basically got a bunch of Crusader idiots to go and like not even make it to the Holy Land, but just they just went straight to Constantinople, a Christian city, and like laid siege destroyed it, raped their women, killed the men, looted it, and then brought it all back to Venice and didn't even go to the Jerusalem, right? And that was the moment that the junior partner to the empire, Venice, became the top dog, the alpha, with this like violent takeover. So they got this infighting within the oligarchy as well. It doesn't mean all of Constantinople was good. There were a lot of bad Satanists in Constantinople too, but it's a game of power. So as a celebration, this monastery was created. It was managed primarily by the Habsburgs. They have many different branches: the Spanish, the Austrian, the Austro-Hungarian. Like they're kind of just everywhere. And they nominally got dissolved as a formal empire back after World War One. However, Otto von Habsburg became he became sort of the student of Count Kalergi, Coudenhove Kalergi. The Coudenhove Kalergi is the leader of the Pan-Europa, the Pan-European fascist movement of the 20s that was like bringing together all of the Mussolini fascists, the American fascists. He was working with the Round Table, and so he created this new order to promote a certain type of fascism, very, very closely aligned to the Vatican, especially Pope Pius the 12th was major supporter of this. And Otto von Habsburg was a student prodigy. Otto von Habsburg creates the Dignitae Humanae Institute, which he runs. Bannon, who's also a former Wall Street naval intelligence guy, is brought in to, at the first, try to be a controller, influencer of Donald Trump. Trump at least was smart enough to fire the guy pretty quickly, like after 2 seconds, and keep him pretty far, which is the right thing to do. Though Trump still has a lot, as you pointed out, there's a lot of vipers controlling the field, so to speak, and that's some of them may not even fully know what the hell they're doing, but they're now. Bannon is in charge of, or he's the spokesman for that Dignitae Humanae Institute that was founded and run by Otto von Habsburg, and there's certain things I don't want to say right now because it's touchy. It's because you're getting into very deep power structures that are currently very active, and
for sure,
yeah, certain families that are very, very active. But
no, you get all that information. You got to, if you want to know that, you got to go to that Substack. You got to go to Matt Ehret's Substack.
Yeah, I guess that could be a teaser, I guess. So yeah, Bannon is definitely part of this counter gang operation to Soros's attempt to try to like redefine what it means to be on the left, right? By turning it ultra woke and violently woke to a radicalized point. And then on the other hand, you're going to necessarily create a conservative reaction. That's always what happens, whether it's during the French Revolution, by promoting the Jacobins, who are these emotional plebes who just want to like kill all the rich because they've suffered, they've got a lot of poverty. They also got a lot of ignorance. They're very emotional, so they can be manipulated by a Robespierre on the bankroll of like the British Foreign Office and British, Freemasonic front groups manipulating different branches of the Grand Orient on the French side. And then on the other hand, when that creates a giant mess, because now good and bad people alike are all like have had their heads cut off. Well, that's going to create such a disaster that you'll necessarily get a conservative reaction. That'll become a right-wing reaction of, in the French case, it was the Girondins, who then were the ones to restore order and create a new calendar system with only 10 days and everything will be logical now. And then that was, then they did a bloodbath purge against the Jacobins, and you just get the left and right to kill each other forever until there's such a point of chaos that they can now infuse their real solution, which is their Holy Roman Emperor, aka Napoleon, who saw himself as the new Holy Roman Empire, who wanted to have a world empire, which had he been successful like Hitler, it would have been a global fascist empire with a managerial class of occultists running banking above him, had he been successful. Now, things didn't pan out that way, but it's the same thing for Hitler. Like, had he been successful, that would have been what we would have gotten. But humans, being human, we have a tendency also of problem solving, and there's been different moments where better people than a lot of those who we have in leadership positions now in the US were active, who were able to subvert these New World Order feudal attempts at different times. That's why so many American presidents get killed. This point I always emphasize to people who get too black-pilled and cynical. It's like, well, you shouldn't be cynical because, like, why do they kill all of these eight American presidents? 4 by poison, 4 by bullets, and then Bobby Kennedy as well in '68, and Martin Luther King, who had presidential material, and Malcolm X, and Alexander Hamilton also assassinated. So you're like, why do they have to kill all of these presidents unless those presidents were actually doing something that was challenging the structures of this evil power structure, which they were. When you look at what they were doing.
And right? MLK was assassinated just that on top of all the Templar symbolism at Lorraine Motel, which goes into the Templar symbolism of the double cross of Lorraine.
I never thought of that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. Interesting.
I just want to add in like little snippets.
Yeah. No, that's useful. Huh. So yeah, the Bannon is definitely not to be trusted in any measure. And I just see, like people could, or Epoch Times, like will I say don't read it? No, I won't say that. Like there is coverage there that is useful. Like take the good, like they cover good stuff about, medical science frauds, or, a lot of the internal politics of the US. Not bad coverage. Not bad. But that's where they get, like, poison is only edible when you wrap it in honey. And it's all of a sudden when you start nodding your head because they're so right on so many things that are important, that all of a sudden you find yourself nodding your head on their assessments of things that have to do with Russia or China or Iran or something like that. And now all of a sudden you're nodding your head to a new crusade of, of a thermonuclear war.
So everybody, I got the go subscribe now to Canadian Patriot. I want to see all y'all go over there. I mean, Suit Wicked Spot, awesome. I think you just talked to Clint as well. I got to meet him. I'm not sure though, but also website Substack, highly recommend his Substack. I mean, if you want some amazing stuff, like I would love, if we had more time, I wanted to go into this. Is Tucker Carlson part of a mass Gnostic initiation of America? Or go check out our last live stream. You got anything on the horizon, or anything you want to tell everybody before we go? And smash that like button, everybody. I didn't get to say it enough in the show, but it's very important to smash that like button. Share this video out. It gets us into these algorithms.
Yes. There's a lot of things going. Cynthia and I have like so many lanes on our growing, expanding highway of activity that it's hard to keep track a little bit. Oh yeah, that's Cynthia's book. Fantastic book, vital resource. Anybody who wants to know what real fascism is, that's the book. There's whole chunks on there on Count Coudenhove Kalergi that'll blow your mind and other things. So anyway, yeah. And so she's working on a whole series that she's spearheading of documentaries on why there are no limits to growth, called Calypso's Island. And people could watch those on risingtidefoundation.net. We're about to release the third one in a few days, maybe Monday or Tuesday. So that'll be exciting. We're doing this other parallel series of documentaries. You pointed out part 2 was just released on H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds on the Hidden Hand. So that's Hidden Hand Behind UFOs. Somewhere on there. Oh yeah, Calypso's Island has a spot in there. If you go back to the Rising Tide Foundation. I don't know how you keep track of your tabs, man. It's daunting.
Practice.
Yeah. So if you go up to the top menu bar, next to About Us, it says Escaping Calypso's Island. That is where you get all the documentaries of that series. They're really great. And the Tesla series is currently underway. So it's like a 13-part series called The Occult Tesla I'm working on. And I've produced 7 of those segments, each one going through different aspects of why Nikola Tesla, who I used to like a lot, like we all do. We all have warm, fuzzy feelings about the great Nikola Tesla. In doing this work on UFO psyops and the occult, I didn't expect to encounter Nikola Tesla's name pop up in the weirdest ways all over the place. And I realized at a certain point, like, there's a story that has to be tied together here. So I had to tell that story. And so that's part 7 is just been released. We'll release part 8 in 2 days, which is going to get crazy, really, really nuts. And yeah, so that's some of the big things. some of the big things.
Oh man, so dope, so dope. I appreciate you, Matt, so much for coming on. And everybody, if you want to support the Doenut Factory as well, bringing the Wikismart research, go over to the Patreon, click the subscribe button. I'll probably be doing a live stream later tonight, more on the Templars, more on some footage I got of Jordan Maxwell, and a lot of people haven't seen. A lot of fun stuff. So that link's down below. I appreciate you, Matt, so much. God bless you, and I'll see you soon.
All right. God bless, Donut. This is fun. Bye.
God bless.